So welcome everyone. This is Brad with More Coaching. I'm here with a very good friend and my very first mentor, Michael Nejman. I met Michael at my first college and such an amazing person. So Michael, thank you so much for being here. You have no idea how much your mentoring has meant to me throughout the years. And it's an honor. It's really, truly an honor to have you be interviewed for my speaker series. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure, and it's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's really good to see you. I've been watching you and your journey with Laura. It's been amazing. I remember meeting her in Chicago, and so good to see you guys really thriving and having a great life together.
True, very true. Thank you, and I appreciate that.
So let's just dive in, Michael. I'm doing a speaker series on people following their dreams, no matter where they are in life, no matter their age, no matter what's happened in life for them. And you've always been an inspiration to me. I've never seen you hesitate to dive into something that might be hard or challenging. And so tell us really quickly, give everybody the audience your name, what you do, why it's important to you.
Sure. My name is Michael Nejman. For more than 30 years, I was involved with programming cultural events at a college, as well as developing their leadership series. I worked with students like Brad back in the day, helping them find their way, their path. Especially, your first year at school, you may not know what you want to do. And my role was to help offer opportunities and give them, chances to learn about life firsthand. I feel it's important to do that, though. I love bringing people together over cultural events, and I love helping people find their dreams and to accomplish those dreams. And nothing makes me feel better than to have somebody like Ed Brad has said, it makes me feel so good to hear that something that I may have done 20, 30 years ago is still reaping some benefits and rewards. And that's really very heartwarming and it makes me feel great. I was very much involved though with cultural arts programming because I think that's the greatest way to bring people together to find common ground is through the cultural arts. And nothing made me feel better than to have groups of people come together at a concert or a lecture or some sort of a program, have a positive experience, and then find that they could connect with each other. I hate to go way back in history here, but I saw a documentary the other day about Jimmy Carter. And, when he was running for president, he found that music was this common denominator that brought people together. And he used the Allman Brothers, was his example of bringing, people from the red states and blue states together because they had a common denominator in music. And I learned from that. I thought, wow, that's a great lesson to learn, how to bring people together.
Yeah. Speaking of red and blue, I just total tangent that we can just drop here. I discovered the true meaning of the word redneck. It was really fascinating.
Okay.
We'll come back to that later after the call.
Okay.
But first question is, what is
before we go any further, though, I didn't talk about what I'm doing now.
Thank you.
I am semi-retired, and because of what you're doing with your program, I have some things that are kind of relevant to that too. But first and foremost, I have a small talent agency now. I work with a couple gentlemen from NPR Radio. They have a show called Sound Opinions, and I book them for events. I'm also a cultural commissioner at the Schaumburg Prairie Arts Center. I also do conflict resolution workshops for college students. And I am an author, and I have a book out called Laughing at the Sun. It's available on Amazon, Laughing at the Sun. And what's nice about that is, Brad, you were so kind to mention Laura. I have had a long record of not so great relationships, and I stumbled and stumbled and stumbled. And right around the time that I was 39, 40, I realized that if I didn't get my act together, I would be alone in my life, and I knew that was something I didn't want. So if you look at my book, it's a travel log kind of a thing about a friend of mine who had shared that he was gay. I had known him my whole life. I didn't know that. So it was a learning process for me in this journey together as we went out west. But the big thing is that during this process, I developed my own 12-step program to deal with all these bad relationships and they were my fault, I think, primarily. I was not a good partner. And so I learned how to correct that. And somebody had said to me, a leopard never changes his spots. And I remember that made me feel very sad because I thought, no, I still have a chance. And I'm here to share with you that I cleaned up my act. I figured out what I was doing wrong. And I'm now in this wonderful, wonderful relationship. I've been married to Laura now for 15 years, and best decision I ever made. And I couldn't be happier. So just goes to show you, and that was later in life. We got married when I was 50, and it's just been wonderful. So there is hope.
But it's so funny that I had the same experience of being a horrible partner and realizing that this isn't working, and all the damage I was creating
Yep.
was awful. And I won't mention the person that finally I had the last situation with, that I just knew that there was no behaving like that ever again.
Hmm.
And I made a conscious change roughly around the same time you did, and it's been such an amazing gift to give to myself, to walk this earth in a way that is supporting and uplifting for people, instead of self-centered and thinking it's always somebody else's fault.
Yep. No, that's an excellent point. Excellent point.
So thank you for sharing that. All right, so first question again is, what is the biggest gift you would give to the world if you had the power to do so, and why would you give that?
I think this would help on so many levels across the whole world. Is just the ability to work together, to find compromise, to do things with civility. It's sad for me to witness what's going on in Washington, D.C., and how people are not crossing the aisles and finding common ground. And Lord knows there's so much common ground. I do conflict resolution workshops with students all the time. I challenge them. I say, I will share with you 3 sentences, and I will lay money that you will all agree with these. And without going into all of them, I'll say something along the lines of, that you want to be dealt with respect and civility, or you want a job that you'll be happy with, or you want to have a place where you feel safe, and an environment you'll feel safe in. And those are things we all share. And if we could just lock in on that and realize that what unites us is more important than what divides us. That's a quote I always use from the late Cardinal Bernardine. We have so much more in common than what we have that divide us, and I think we need to really lock into that. And boy, if we could eliminate greed, that would be a good thing.
Yes.
If you think about it, John Lennon wrote the song Imagine, which, if you really listen to those lyrics, I've always felt that we have all the answers and solutions to our problems if it wasn't for all the boundaries, either the religious or political. We could make things work on this earth, and it's because of greed, and it's because of these boundaries that we've created for ourselves that make it more challenging. And life would be much better, I think, if we would just look at the big picture and stop looking at our own individual interests.
I agree. It's like in any kind of relationship, whether it's platonic or romantic, what are you going to focus on, the positive or the negative?
Right.
So
Exactly.
so
Well,
thank you.
gratitude, I think gratitude's an important thing there too, as you say, the positive over the negative. I hate to admit this, but Oprah Winfrey had a big impact on me with her gratitude diaries. I remember back when they first came out, and I tried religiously every day. I would try to write my 5 things I was the most grateful for, and I just kept thinking to myself, oh my God, this is never going to work. This is never going to change. And one day, it was funny, 25 or 30 days into it, where I had this really rotten day. It was just an awful day. And so I start trying to find the 5 things I was grateful for. And by the end of my time with my pen and my journal, I had come up with 20 things that I was grateful for. And I started to realize, oh my God, I was always focusing on the negative, not focusing on the positive. And it really turned me around and changed my life. So thank you, Oprah.
Right. I love Oprah. I mean, with as much swirling around the world, at the end of the day, based on results, her life is working. One of the most powerful statements I've learned on my spiritual journey for growth is based on results. So, and people say, well, you have good things or bad things, and so everything is just neutral, right? Things that are good for you might not be good for me, but
Right.
based on results, is your life working or not? So
Right.
I love that.
And you should be cautious about assessing things as being positive or negative right away.
Yeah.
There's I think it's a Chinese story they say of,
Oh, I hope this is the one I think it is.
this is the one where there's a farmer and his son breaks
Yes,
his leg, and he
this is
thinks,
the
okay,
one.
All right. I love that story though, but for those people who may not know, and I just know the tip of the iceberg here, and I
Right.
know it's much longer, but the son breaks his leg, and so this farmer's colleague goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That's going to be a problem for you." And the farmer says, "Well, we'll wait and see." And then a few days later, the armies come in and they want to take the son into battle, but they can't because he's got a broken leg. And so it saves the son's life. So something that may look negative, you have to just give it time because you never know. It could be a very positive thing. You just have to wait for life to play out.
Yeah, exactly. I think the key phrase is like maybe like this. The story starts out that he's got a horse and it wanders off into the forest and
Mm,
he doesn't know where it goes. And then his neighbor goes, "Oh, how unlucky!" And he goes,
right,
"Maybe." And
right.
then the horse comes back a few days later, but it brought back another horse. And they go, "Oh my God, he brought back another horse. How lucky!" He goes, "Maybe." And the son broke his leg by trying to tame the horse.
Right, right.
So, but I love that you and I share that same story. It's such a great story because it's right. We never know if something's going to be, a positive or negative influence in our life, and that may even change over time. Like
Right.
when I get emotionally worked up, or the buzzword now is triggered. Um, I used to be all up in my stuff and like, why is this happening? And now when it happens, I'm so grateful for this emotional workup, this turmoil, because now I go, okay, let's take a look at what's going on inside of me. Why am I feeling all worked up right now? What hasn't been healed inside of me for me to have this turmoil racing inside of me? So I love all of that.
Mm.
Okay, and so next question is, I love it because we actually had to deal with that this morning. Is it important to have a plan B?
Yeah.
And if so, why?
It's so funny. I think I made my whole career on being very effective with my developing plan Bs and having them. As Brad alluded to, we were just ready to start this Zoom cast, some of our landscapers pulled up and they had their leaf blowers, and it sounded like a jet plane was landing in my front yard. And I said, "Well, I think we need to wait another 20 minutes or so." And so we were flexible, and it all worked out. But as I said, for 30 years, I worked in cultural arts programming. And when you're doing, outdoor festivals, for instance, it's so critical to have a plan B or a plan C or a plan D, because you never know what life's going to throw at you. And when there's an emergency, if you're in the midst of an emergency, you may not be thinking clearly. So the ability to be able to go from, leap from one situation to another effectively can be really helpful to you. So I highly recommend that with whatever you do in your life, have a plan B or a plan C or even a plan D, so that when obstacles come and challenges come up, you go, okay, well, I'll just do this. And sometimes you may not even have the ability to have a plan B, but be open and flexible. As life will definitely present you with things at the worst times. You never know. Nothing ever happens in a convenient time frame. That's one thing
Yeah.
I've learned about life. Even the good stuff. It's like I may have a period where I don't get any bookings, and then all of a sudden, like I have 6 people calling me on the same day, and they want the same week, and it's like, oh my God, can I make this happen? But you just have to kind of go with the flow, and when it rains, it pours, sometimes both negatively and positively, and you just have to realize that that's just the way life is.
That is 100% the way that life is. What do you have to say to people that, all these, gangster entrepreneurs that say there is no plan B? What would you say to people like that?
That's an interesting thing. I listen to Mark Maron's WTF podcast all the time, and he interviews a wide variety of people. And one thing that they keep saying, and I think there's some validity to that, they go, for comedians, you have to realize there is no plan B. You have to make this work. And for some people, and depending on what it is you do, I see the value in that, because say, like in my case, it's interesting. I always felt that I was going to be a writer. I knew I wanted to write. So I took general journalism classes. I didn't know if I wanted to go into public relations or marketing. I ended up going into a whole nother field I didn't anticipate, which was a great fit for me. But I used writing almost as a hobby. Now, had I made it my real focus, maybe I would have, accelerated more in my writing abilities and become an author sooner. But I can't look at it that way. What I have to look at is I lived more life, and those life experiences really helped me as a writer to become a better writer. But I think for some people, you have to keep that in mind, though, too, that if you're doing something like with comedy, is what Mark Maron and his colleagues constantly say, if you don't have a plan B, you don't know anything else what to do. Sometimes you got to throw yourself into that, do the best you can. But then at some point, you really do need to realize, after X number of years, make a plan for yourself. Maybe that's not your calling. Maybe it is you need to be open to other options. And that's what happened to me. I wanted to go into one field. It didn't quite pan out, but this opportunity opened at this college. I stepped into it and found that that was a life's calling. I mean, it was a job experience that I couldn't have been happier with. It was just so fulfilling. So, and it wasn't anywhere in my game plan to start with.
Yeah. Well, I'll just, to add on to that, I watched how people interacted with you and how much of a positive influence you were. Like we've spoken about a few people that we still have in common, and
Right.
you know the level of support that you showed was really um, such a positive influence. I watched people grow and develop with your guidance, and it was just really, really amazing to see. So I'm glad that you had that diversion.
Well, thank you. And that's kind of you. I think I was sharing with you over the phone when we talked the other day, though. It's funny how things change. When you were on program board and the people we were talking about, you all had experiences where you didn't get a lot of support at home. And I think that having somebody acknowledge that you had great ideas and that you had a lot of potential gave you that support. And what's funny now is parents are so like they talk about helicopter parents or snow plowing parents where they clear the path for you, and students don't have to figure out how to navigate systems now and stuff. I think that's really hurtful. I think that's a problem. I think people need to find some things out on their own.
Yeah.
And so those of you out there who maybe have kids, allow them to fail. I think, God, some of the best lessons I ever learned were from failures,
Yeah.
because that's the best way to learn. And no one's going to be able to tell you,
Yeah.
don't do X, Y, and Z. And you'll say, yeah, yeah, whatever. But
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you fail and you fall on the ground, that's when you're going to learn the best life lessons.
I was reading something just this morning on parents who allow their children to fail and still loving them unconditionally. There's no judgment. There's no,
Right,
oh my God, how could you do that? It's all like, okay, did you learn a lesson here? Okay,
right,
what did you learn?
right,
Okay, what can you do differently moving forward? It's the allowing people to fail without assigning a negative aspect to failing, because there's this wonderful phrase that I learned, because there was this thing that people would say and I was like, what the hell? It's like, what if you knew that you could never fail?
mm,
And it's like, what do you mean? People fail all the time, and there's this whole negative connotation with failure. And then there's this transition from I either win or learn. So removing the failure aspect, the negative connotations of failure, and taking the lesson from not hitting the mark or failing to reach your goal. And I love that is with every failure there's a lesson, and there's people that say fail often, fail forward.
right, right. I
you know
think
and
that's good advice. And if you don't allow yourself to fail, think of the anxiety levels you're
oh
dealing
my
with.
God.
I mean, how do you breathe? How do you move forward at all if it's like, oh my God, I don't want to make a mistake here? And what's funny is how many times do the mistakes actually, that's how they discovered Velcro or sticky, these sticky pad things,
Yeah,
it's like the adhesive didn't work properly initially, but then they come up with a secondary concept that is even stronger than the primary concept. So don't be afraid to experiment and try things out, because you may fail, but then that's where you're going to learn lessons. And every time you fail, you're just going to I think you'll do better in the future.
yeah. I mean, look at Thomas Edison. I mean, one of the most common examples is Thomas Edison, right? Failed, depending on who you ask, either 999 times or 9,999 times. And people are saying, how did you keep going? You failed so many times. And his response was, I didn't fail. I just learned how it didn't work.
Right.
If we
And
need
even
to take,
with careers and actually relationships too, sometimes failing like that can help you at least determine what you don't want in life.
yeah,
So that's a good thing too. You may not know exactly what you want or who the right person is, but sometimes you realize, oh well, I know that this isn't what I want and I need to go this
exactly.
way.
Yeah. sometimes starting out with what you don't want is a good starting point too.
Right.
It's like Colonel Sanders. He failed dozens of jobs. And finally at 63, I mean, 63,
Right.
you know, he decided, well, I know one thing that I do really well, and that's make chicken.
Right.
And he started with that. And then people started to buy more. And then he created a restaurant, and then more, and then more. And so it's like just keep going. You'll figure it out. So next to last question is, what are the golden rules that you live by, and why are these important to you?
I love this question, and it was funny when you first shared that would be one of the questions. I had to sit down and really figure out, okay, what is it that what are the golden rules I live by? And I came up with these 6, and I'll go through them kind of quickly because we can elaborate on any ones you want to elaborate on. But my dad always told me to do the right thing even when people aren't watching. And when I go through life, I find that that's the one thing I always come back to. My dad was a real estate broker. I remember giving him a hard time one time because he was always so honest with his clients. And I said, Dad, if you just fudge this a little bit, you'd be making more money, you'd be making more sales. And he sat me down and said, Mike, if I lied to my clients, I don't think I could sleep at night, and I want to sleep at night. And I thought, that's a great way to live. And so I really respected that. With Another one was with my students, an observation I made when at the college that I worked at, you'd see these kids come on with blinders on. They would, they'd go from their car to their class back to their car, and then back home. Tell my students to make sure that they learned to develop their peripheral vision, see the world around them, get involved, volunteer, learn from that, get out of your comfort zones. If you stay in your comfort zone, you're not going to have any personal growth or development. I know it's more anxiety producing, but that's important. And there's a book called Feel the Fear, But Do It Anyway.
I know that book. I have that book.
Yeah, I used to chant that all the time because I have real bad anxiety issues. And
Me
I
too.
would tell myself, hey, you're going to feel the fear, but just go forward and do it. And so that was always effective for me. In the same vein, one of these other rules that I follow is you can't control the waves, but you can determine how you want to surf them. So anytime I have this challenge coming up or obstacle, I envision it as a wave. And then I think to myself, okay, how am I going to overcome this wave, or how am I going to surf this wave? And I think that's a healthy way to kind of look at problems. I've got 2 Stephen Coveys that I love. Stephen Covey said that there's no such thing as a perfect being. And to get the best solutions to your problems, you need the widest variety of perspectives. I did diversity programming way before it was a big buzzword. And there's a real beauty in bringing different people to the table, because if you do the same thing the same way every time, you're not going to have any development, personal growth or development. By getting different perspectives, that's ways to look at something differently, and you can be more successful that way. There was another Covey saying, he said, be loyal to those who are absent. And that's an interesting one. I like that. Never say anything about a person you wouldn't say to their face. I think that's a really safe thing to do. You never want to have bad blood between you and another person. And how many times do you say something you think that is being discreetly dealt with somebody? You think, oh, no one's going to ever share this, and it gets out, and then you may really alienate somebody. And so I think don't ever say anything about somebody unless it is something you would say to them in person. And then I'm going to paraphrase this last one. It's from Gandhi. It's a longer statement, but something along the lines of, no matter what it is you do, always do the best job that you can. And I think he uses the idea of, even if you're a lowly street sweeper, do the best job that you can, because you should take pride in your work. And at some point, that's all going to pay off. Even at the very least, you will know that on that given day when you go to bed, you did you had a good day. You did the best job that you could, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that that's a really positive way to look at your life, even on those days that are more challenging than others.
Yeah, I love that. I actually lived that. I went through a really, really difficult time a couple years ago, and I remember sitting at my desk thinking, why am I doing this job? Why am I here right now? And one day I just had to ask myself, like, what is wrong with you? Where is your gratitude? And I decided right then and there, it's like, no matter what happens, I will always do the best job and be in integrity and have gratitude. And from that moment, everything changed.
Yep.
everything changed for me. I literally got promoted within like a week or two after that. Um, and so 100% have integrity, always do the best job you can, no matter what, no matter who's looking or who's not looking.
And if I can insert, there was a real positive experience I had over the Christmas break. I watched Ted Lasso. I don't know if you're familiar with it at all, but you can't help but love a person who stays positive, who always finds that silver lining in the cloud. Like you say, finding gratitude, and people love people who are like that. If you're sitting there and you're griping all the time and just whine, 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 it's like enough, enough. We are so privileged. Any day that you don't have bombing going on. I mean, think of what's going on now in the
Yeah.
Ukraine. Think about, I always look back, there's a book called The Vile and the Splendid about World War II and how the Blitz took place in London. And, during COVID, everybody was buckled down, hunkered down in their homes. And to read that book was a real eye opener, and thinking to yourself, what, at least we're not having, bombing raids every night. You don't have a risk of dying in your home because of bomb drops on it. Keep it all in perspective. Whatever we're going through, it's not the worst. It could always be worse. They always say that it could
Yeah,
always be worse. And I
it
used to
could.
scoff at that, but boy, when you think about, what can go wrong in your life, hey, be grateful for what you have.
100%, 100%. Okay, so last question,
Sure.
Michael. And I wanted to say thank you again for being here and making time for this.
My pleasure.
Truly, truly grateful. So why is it important to have dreams and goals?
And I would answer that with, why is it important to breathe? I mean, you need to have a reason to get up in the morning, a purpose. And I think that that's why you should have dreams and goals, because that's what motivates you. That's what gets you through your daily life. And don't wait for life to provide you with opportunities. That's a major thing that I would share with your audience, is that get out there and hustle, make opportunities for yourself. That's what I did. It's funny, back when I was 19, I think it was, I was in college my first year, but I was working in a clothing store selling clothes. And I ran into a bunch of guys who were in a band, and I convinced them to let me take their photos for their press kits. And then I ended up becoming their manager, and I learned about contracts. And the funny thing was, is I was booking them in venues that I wasn't even old enough to go to. I think I was 19 or 20, and it was 21 years. You had to be 21 to go, to go to a nightclub. But that's how I learned. And then I learned how to do outdoor programming that way. I mean, whatever it took for me to kind of learn the ropes, I did it. So, and if you look at what's going on now, I love listening to these people who, there's so many outlets now for creative content. People are making movies and sharing them on was it Tinder? I mean, there's all these apps. They're being very creative in the way that they're putting out what their message is or what their information is or whatever. Find ways to get the word out. And now there's so many ways to do that, that you can make your own opportunities. Don't wait for life to present things to you. Get out there and say, okay, what is it I want to do with my life? How do I get there? What are the steps I need to take? And just be open to that peripheral vision. Look at, don't have those blinders on, only looking at one thing. See what other opportunities are out there, because you may find something you like even better.
What would you say to somebody who says, I don't know what I want. I don't know how to I don't know how
That
to
was
dream anymore.
me. Oh my God, that was me. I did, it's like, I hated when people would say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because it's like, I have no clue. And what's okay, because you sit there and you watch those, like the Grammys or the Oscars, and I would look at these people go, yeah, from the time I was 5 years old, I knew I wanted to be an actor or a singer. And I'd be like, oh my God, that must be wonderful, because I never had an idea of what it is that I wanted. I had a sense of maybe what I didn't want to do. I don't want to dig ditches or whatever. But I kept my, I originally I thought I was going to work for a record company. In fact, I worked for Warner Elektra Atlantic Records initially. Hated the experience. It wasn't what I wanted, and I leapt to this job at the college, and that became this perfect fit. Well, that wasn't even on my radar. So be open to other opportunities, because you may think you want this, but there may be something else out there that might be the better fit. Oh, and real quick, not that I have nothing to do with this other than the fact that it was a positive experience for me. There's a book out called Strengths Quest, and you take this little quiz and it tells you what your strengths are. And I have my strengths right here, like adaptability or woo. Woo is charisma, input, communication is one of my strengths. And what's cool about this is you take the Strengths Quest test, you find out what your strengths are, and then they give you a list of like 20 different career opportunities. And so sometimes you just got to think outside the box. And this gives you a chance to see what, okay, here are my strengths. This is what I'm good at. And here's the possibility of some things that maybe I hadn't thought about. And that would open up your mind to other things. So I did this 10 years ago. I just checked this morning, though I know the book's still out there. If you're having time, if you're having a struggle figuring out what it is you want in life, what it is you want to do with yourself, check this out. It might be a good way to start out. And I always say too, if you're in college right now, go talk to your counselors, talk to people who can help you find a path, and be patient. Sometimes it takes time, just like Brad and myself, it was quite a while before I kind of figured things out to the point where I really could find happiness in my life. But it happened, and you just have to be patient.
Yes, excellent. Well, Michael, we're at the end. Thank you so much again. So much love for you and so much gratitude and appreciation. I love this, and more than likely, I'm going to be reaching out to you again if you're open to that. So if you want to do any final announcements for people and how they can get a hold of you, how they can reach you, I want to make sure that people have access to you.
Sure. Well, if you want to, if you're confident with the people that you're working with, you can share my email with them personally, and then just let them mention your name in the first line, just so I know how I'm relating to them. But I'm always helpful and happy to offer some advice along the way.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, send me something through either Facebook Messenger or email that I can include when I post this video, so that people have access to getting your book, to your diversity training, to maybe accessing your podcast, whatever you want to send to me. I will make sure and include it in that post so people have full access to you.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. Well, good talking with you, Brad. Thanks for thinking of me and including me in your program.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's an honor, and I've never forgotten what a positive influence you've been in my life, and I tell people about you all the time.
Well, thank you. And I've literally worked with hundreds and hundreds of students, Brad, and you're one of the few that I always remember, and always enjoyed our time together at the college. And I'm so glad to see that you're doing so well. So keep it going.
Thank you, my friend. I love you. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye now.
Take care.